record button real quick. So you'll get that announcement. But if no one has a question at this point, then we will continue on with the presentation.
I have a question.
Sure, perfect.
Thank you. My question is, I think you showed a matrix of like weighting of the factors. I was wondering, how did you do that? How did you decide on the weighting, and was it also on Kumu platform that you used after you decide on the figures?
Yeah, thank you for your question. As I've said, this is available on Kumu Matrix. It does it automatically for you, but then there's also a help for you to learn how to use it, because there are at least 20 metrics. There are at least 20 metrics that you can, there are at least 20 metrics that you can look at. So it's somehow very complex. So what I wanted to tell you as well is what I showed here. We have to take it with a pinch of salt, because our diagram was not a final diagram. I mean, we did it with the time we had and the kind of resources that we had. The perfect thing would have been to go out there and get stakeholders, where stakeholders will have improved our map, and then we'll have seen perhaps a different picture. But from what we saw is like information availability and connection to global networks are important. And I think that is what Debbie is trying to address with Catalyst as well, as one of the action point of Catalyst. So it seems interesting that the diagram is showing also that this is something that we have to look into. So take it with a pinch of salt from here. What we're showing, if we would have written a research paper, would have been more rigorous and would have been more, look at the data points and everything. But here it's just to show the possibilities with Kumu.
May I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah. And Kumu is free for anyone. I mean, the one you receive from, there's a question, the Kumu that you receive as part of the course, it has limitation. It will close down after like 3 months. I had one. I lost everything, so I created another one on Kumu by myself, and the free version, but it doesn't allow you to publish it. It has to be a public version. You know, if you pay, then you can have private. But if you like, this one is available. If you know the link, anyone can go and have a look at it. Yes.
My question is this value calculated automatically through the number of circles or flows that you draw here? So, and if so, is this helpful to design the leverage point? Is that where you use it? What
Yes.
is the use of? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a degree of closeness and the amount of connections that we have for each of these labels or each of these attributes. And yeah, so it gave us what we could further investigate. And we were also talking about, this is the first step. Now that we know that it's information availability and connection to global networks, perhaps we can do two things. One, we could go through a RCT, a randomized controlled trial, or randomized control evaluation, where you have a control group and a treatment group, where these are treatment arms, like you give more information in one group, then you give more connection in one group, and in another group you don't give any of these information and connection, and then see what is the difference. Because you can only check the impact of your actions through a randomized control evaluation. That is one way we could do. That could be the next step. Or the second step could be using design thinking. Now that you know that it's information availability and connection, so now we're going to engage the stakeholders more and use that to know what we now know what is. So what now? So what we're going to do, like the different options, the different hypotheses, test it and iterate it till we get like a solution which is acceptable to everyone.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you for your questions.
So moving on, a couple more things on the leveraging, if you want to do that, Sanjay.
So yeah, so as you pointed out, as someone pointed out, once you have done your diagram from your map, you will have to write narratives because the map by itself is complex. So you need to write stories about like what is influencing what, and like what are the inhibitors, what are the most important one. So then you have to decide where do you want to engage the system, which point you want to address, what impact you're going to you want to make, and yeah, how you can achieve this impact. But I said, you know, the next step for us was to use system thinking to simplify the problem. It's not finding a solution. System thinking doesn't help you to find a solution, but it helps you to make sense of the problem and see all the connections. What are the different subsystems? What are the different feedback loops? Now that we have come up with like what could be some of the leverage points, now we could go through the next step. The next action will be either to do a design thinking process or to do a randomized control evaluation process. Okay, so yeah, okay, we can do that. So Wamuyu, our colleague from Kenya, is going to present something very interesting, and then we'll come back. If we have some time, we'll go to the breakout room. Yeah. Over to you, Wamuyu. Next slide, Daniel.
Next slide.
Next slide.
Next slide. Yeah, so I wanted to inform you that last week we launched a guideline. This is Ashoka Europe. I'm an Ashoka fellow. My name is Wamuyu Mahinda. We launched a guideline called Supporting Systems Changes, the Role of Systems Thinking, Leadership, and Well-Being. This guideline is for social entrepreneurs to create equitable, positive, and lasting change. And it's very interesting because the guide primarily draws on experiences working with and learning from the diverse global network of Ashoka Fellows. And it also relies on brilliant work of many supporters, researchers, and practitioners. So many of these inspiring partners are featured in the examples in the guidebook. And it outlines three elements of systems changes. And these are systems change strategy, change-making leadership, and well-being. Next slide. Highly impactful social entrepreneurs develop solutions that address systems, not symptoms. Social entrepreneurs should train their minds to think holistically, map systems like we've just been discussing, involve multiple perspectives, surface root causes, identify the most powerful levers for intervention, and make systems change their desired state. So that you can now understand very clearly because we've just been talking about the exercise that we did, the acumen exercise. So next slide. Leading social entrepreneurs aim to galvanize others to step into their power and contribute to change for the greater good. Change-making leaders require the ability to shift between being a leader, an enabler, a supporter, and even a follower. So the leader needs different roles, takes up different roles that require different opportunities and capacities and mindsets and skills. And this you develop, of course, in the process of working and learning more about how to do this. Next slide. In Ashoka, we have realized that it's very important to understand how we work, the well-being of the leaders. And systems are embedded in systems and are interconnected. Systems are embedded in systems and are interconnected. So you find that we're talking about the person, the team, the organization, the sector, the economy, the environment, and so on and so forth. And with support, patience, and humility, we can grow in authentically and wellness, and ground ourselves in purpose and meaning, strengthen our resilience and sustainability, and make holistic well-being a priority in our lives. So self-awareness can be cultivated, and pain and trauma can be healed, because well-being journeys can reframe the way we see the world, provide us with direction and support, and create systems that hold us accountable for our goals. So this is just a summary of the material that was launched last week. And each and every one of you can get a free copy from the Ashoka Europe website. You can download it, and you can go to that link. I think we'll put the link in the chat to be able to download a copy for yourself to understand more about systems supporting change makers. Thank you very much. Sanjay, over to you.
Yeah, so we can go back to the breakout room, Daniel. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we'll put you in breakout rooms, 4 groups now, okay, of 4 people, and we can discuss about a problem you would like to solve, and you can you can discuss, and we will be in the groups as well, and you can have a small discussion on how you will like to use whatever you've seen today in our presentation, or maybe you could also try to ask prepare some questions when we come back. So we have around, if we have 4, around 8 minutes. Would that be good, Daniel? 8 minutes? Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great.
They want to share their example of enablers or inhibitors, or did we get as deep as we wanted to? The idea here is that, you know, we were just trying to show you one of the tools that we use, which was a simplistic one because the other ones were really crazy. I love the looking at the new North Star. That was a really great activity that we did as well. So our lessons learned from this experience, and I think these are really truth telling, the patience to understand the problem. So all of us came in feeling, sorry, I just lost my power. All of us came in with this feeling of understanding the problem from different perspectives, but we needed to hear the voices of the people in those communities. So seeing, you know, taking the patience and the time to spend with folks to really understand the perspectives with multiple, I always talk about multiple lenses. I see it from my perspective and I see it from all my people on the team's perspective. But then the second one is I have to listen to the stakeholders. So the people in the communities who are facing these challenges, we need to listen and engage them in the solution and have those conversations with them. So really spending time and lots of interviews and conversations and watching what's happening on the ground. Working in the team, we realized is a lot of times we would go into a Friday. We took an hour and a half on Friday for 8 weeks. So it kind of tells you, we took turns kind of leading the sessions. But then, you know, we had to do homework and we had to do our readings and we had to understand things. And so that working in a team, we would have never gotten to the understanding that we did had we not had the mindsets of everyone else involved. And I think too, having Corinne involved, because she was an undergraduate student, she did the best job of asking the questions and clarifying. And so it reminded us to saying, we're not being really clear here. So what are we trying to communicate? And then last one, the mapping the system, as we said, is complex and it takes lots of time. And I think the complexity of these big systemic problems, we need to remind ourselves of the time that it takes. I love this graphic. So I made Sue put it in because she had done this for a paper and we were like, oh my gosh, this is our complex challenge. So Sue, I'm passing on to you to talk about this graphic because it's just as cool visual, prettier. I messed up the connections.
No, yeah, no, sorry. Okay, is it sharing? No.
Not yet.
Okay, fine. Don't worry, I will, because I want to see if I could do that. I can't share it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay, so have that screen on and I'll share with you what it is about. Basically, it's a conference paper I presented, and the paper is called Constructing Social Entrepreneurship Ecosystem. Could I see the diagram, please? Otherwise, I can't talk to it. Thank you. And then, thank you. So basically, this is what happened in Hong Kong. It's a social innovation and social entrepreneurship ecosystem created from $50 million fund for funding social innovators and social entrepreneurs for addressing poverty alleviation. So I make this ecosystem I draw this to make it visualized, to have all the parties, obviously players involved. So from the left-hand side, I use the kind of concept of input, processes, and output, which is a normal production, well, typical generic production framework. So on the left-hand side, we have basically the secretariat, the government secretariat, but very often collaborating with other players, including impact investors, universities, and also business sectors, in order to provide not only funding, but expertise, knowledge, and other resources for intermediaries as incubators to incubate social innovators and social entrepreneurs, so that we could actually bring in more up and coming young entrepreneurs and innovators to address social issues. So to some extent, because I can't use my cursor, if you could visualize people, you could see the word people, right? So the 4 of them, they are the intermediaries. Thank you. And then going right-hand side, those to innovators, to beneficiaries, you can see that there is feedback loop to the outcomes, because within the system, the innovators and entrepreneurs have to make impact reporting. So as a result, the beneficiaries, unlike World Vision, will have to report their impact. And then therefore the impact reporting forms a communication loop back to the intermediaries, so that it will bring the impact as a kind of validated outcome. But at the same time, if you could imagine another virtuous cycle, the intermediaries going left-hand side will share the impact reporting back to the funders. And as a result, the funders receiving that impact communication loop will then continue to fund the social innovators. So this is a virtuous cycle when they overlap and continue to influence one another. The positive changes, positive impact will kind of spiral up. So sorry, I would say, Shoshana, you asked for a vicious cycle example. I'm giving you a virtuous one. I actually have a vicious cycle, but we leave it to Q&A. Okay, Debbie, are you happy with what I've explained?
Yes, I love it. That's why I love having you. We saw this graphic, we were super excited. So what to close this out, because we left the 15 minutes so that we had some extra time for Q&A, but on the lessons learned, we want to do some Q&A real fast, and then I'm going to give you a couple more resources. On the reflections piece, we can just end here and just look at everyone. Is there any questions that all of you have before we just do some closing kind of other places to go for resources?
Should I respond to Shoshana's question?
Perfect.
I think, Shoshana, in Hong Kong, I've been involved in the social entrepreneurship sector for over 10 years. So I founded social enterprise or NGO, stroke NGO actually, that promotes social entrepreneurship in Hong Kong. And what I see actually before we have this ecosystem of that diagram that appeared in terms of the government funding, a lot of the time that's a transition in Hong Kong where about a lot of the for-profit entrepreneurs actually turn themselves into social entrepreneurs. And I think it's very interesting, and I wouldn't say, and also there are new blood from China as well. But the vicious cycle I would describe is some, I wouldn't say all, is that they still are trying to use business methods to solve social issues, but if you deal with them longer, you could see that they are still thinking along the business models, and it is okay to have the obviously double bottom line, but they are not so generous in terms of sharing the knowledge and also bringing up younger people. And as a result, I would say there is, I would describe this as a kind of mission. Either they commit mission shift, after going a while, it's still going towards generating profits, or for self-interest reasons. And instead of really sharing models, sharing knowledge, and also nurturing young entrepreneurs. So that part of it, if it's kind of not having empowerment, and I would describe this as kind of a kind of vicious cycle.
Thank you. Can I ask a follow-up question? Because these examples are great. And what I'm still battling with is, to me, it seems like that same cycle could become a virtuous cycle once you change one of the levers. So that's what I'm trying to understand. A vicious and a virtuous cycle could be the exact same cycle. It just depends if it's in the process of going down or if it's in the process of going up. No?
It depends on the complexity. If I'm talking about what I have seen in the situation in Hong Kong, it depends on the complexity and depends on the players. Human nature is the most difficult. If there's the problem of processes or kind of even institutional culture, from my point of view, sometimes it's not so difficult. It depends if they have social goals after all, or social purposes. But I find it depends if there are individual players who have really self-interest and also not really aim at empowering communities. It is quite tricky. Anyway, that's my view. Other people could share.
We'll give you some tools before we close up, and then we don't have to keep you past the time limit of the hour and 15 at the top. Daniel's going to pull these up, but there's a couple of things that are out there. The Social Change Innovators is an online platform that we created for educators who are teaching in this space. James Staunch, who's at the University of Mount Royal in Canada, who was here earlier, him, Daniela Pappy, and another woman, Anna, from the University of Oxford, curated these resources on systems change. And by doing that, basically we tried to put together the best practices in systems change. There are some academic articles in there, so hopefully you won't be too bored, but you can at least get those resources. So this is the module here. We're going to put in the link to access this module, and just specifically for the systems thinking for social change. In that, so you see Daniela Pappy Thornton on one of her TED Talks, the Systems Thinking, A Curious Tale, the Systems Practice Workbook, which is the workbook that we used for this Omidyar course, the Student Guide to Mapping the System, that's what James did, and this is actually the program that they're running now on Map the System launch. For graduate students, tends to be all over the world that participate in this mapping exercise. And it's all about the conversations and connecting with these stakeholders and having these conversations. So that's super wonderful. The second set of resources that are available here and that I wanted to share is the things that are coming up with this team. So we have the Learning Planet Festival that's going on this week. These are the systems learning workshops. Julie Batalana's in about another half an hour. She's presenting on her book, The Power of All, and it talks about power dynamics and shifting power dynamics. The 26 is uplifting communities. If you're teaching in this space, it's focused on the pedagogy and working in communities and having students engage in those communities. The 27th, we have systems thinking, but it's mainly about complexity science. So if you're like me, who happens to moderate the session and has zero clue what's going on, you'll want to join that session because I'll be learning with y'all. And then the last one, there's a tool on map. If you've done the social business model canvas, so we have the business model canvas. Well, this is specifically to the social business model canvas, where an organization can map out their business model. It's hands-on. You'll be using the tool to create your own social business model canvas. And that was developed by Denise Crossan at Swarthmore University. So we will add this information and the links into the chat so that you have all these additional resources. But thank you again to our participants. We appreciate all the time that you guys have shared. And thank you for our speakers. Great job pulling all this together. And let us know if you need anything from us. You have all our chat information. So we're looking forward to hearing from you. So thank you so much. And let us know if you have any last minute questions along the way. Let me add the chat information too before you leave us. And actually the slide deck we can share as well. Here's the slide deck because all the resources are in the slide deck. There you go. And then this is the Social Change Innovator site. So 3 things that are shared, the slide presentation, so you have access to it. We're big fans of taking anything we created, as long as you cite the original source. And we have other systems learning sessions that are happening at part of the Learning Planet. There's a little bit there, and the Social Change Innovators online portal, if you would like to have access to that. Thank you once again. Have a good afternoon, evening, morning, depending on where you're from.
Thank you, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Take
everyone.
care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sanjay. Thanks, Sue. Bye. Bye, Corinne.